How we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here and welcome back to another video. So this is going to be a patch 9.2 mini survival guide for you gold goblins out there. For any of you that enjoy making gold in World of Warcraft, what are you going to be wanting to do? When are you going to be wanting to do it? We're going to try and cover as much as we can in this video, and I'm going to try and keep this short and sweet. Let's look at the first thing, materials. We did a video a couple of days ago. I'll leave a link up in the in the fancy corner bit to my materials video. There is a bunch of new materials when you're flying about, or well, maybe not flying straight away, but we'll get to that. When you're in and about Zereth Mortis, there's a bunch of new materials to gather. There's a new material, there's a new cloth, there's a new ore, there's a new herb, there's a new leather. There's a new meat and a new fish, and then there's a new fancy legendary crafting reagent, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The TLDR on these is pretty simple. Go out and get them and put them on the auction house and sell them. There's a slight concern I have that the value of these materials is going to plummet pretty fast, so the early bird catches the worm with this one, really. If you're playing in Zereth Mortis over the first couple of days, make sure you head out, you go gather up a bunch of these things and you get them sold. The quicker you can sell them, the more gold you'll make from them. Some of them are a little bit more valuable than others. I would go as far as to say things like the ore is going to be a little bit more valuable. But if you want to know a little bit more about the materials themselves, which ones are good, which ones are not, check out my materials video. It's a nicely, highly edited, nicely polished video. A lot of people enjoyed it. If you haven't seen it already, check it out. But that's the main thing for the materials, for the farmers out there. That's what you're going to want to be doing. Farming some of the new stuff is always lucrative at the beginning of the patch. If you enjoy the farming, if you enjoy trading in some of your time for gold, that's the avenue to go down. Next, let's take a little bit of a look at some of the new crafted recipes. There's not a huge amount of them in patch 9.2. Not many professions, unfortunately, got much love. But the gear crafters, the catch-up gear crafters, so your jewel crafters, your leather workers, your blacksmiths and your tailors have all got a bunch of new stuff to be crafting, and this is going to be where you will want to get pretty friendly. In fact, you want to be more than friendly, you want to be honoured with the new faction in Zereth Mortis. This guy is called Velo. He is in the main sort of capital city for the new zone. You'll very quickly become acquainted with this guy, and he sells you a bunch of goodies. The ones we're interested in are going to be the Crafter's Mark 4 and the Crafter's Mark of the first ones. These are two new Crafter's Marks. These work in a very similar fashion to how they've worked previously. You still continue to craft the same gear, but instead of using your Crafter's Mark 2 or your Crafter's Mark 1 or whatever, you're going to throw in the new Crafter's Marks, and it's going to increase the item level to the relevant point. Crafter's Mark 4 is pumping the item level all the way up to 233. 233 is going to be your sort of default buy it off the auction house catch-up gear. The big boy, the Crafter's Mark of the first ones, this is going to pump it all the way up to item level 262. But of course, similar to that in patch 9.1, you're only going to be able to equip one of these bits of gear at any one time. Now, the thing that people care about is, well, how quickly can we get these? Both of these patterns require you to be honoured with this new faction. That, by my calculations, is going to take you between, I'd say, 10 to 12 days for most players. If you're playing in Zereth Mortis on a somewhat regular basis, if you're logging in daily to do your world quests, you're completing the campaign when it comes up, and you're killing a bunch of rares in Zereth Mortis, 10 to 12 days is about the time it will probably take you to get honoured. The really, really zoomy ones out there that are trying to min-max everything might be able to pick these up a little bit earlier, the 9th or 10th day maybe, but you're going to have to really put some effort in to get them much quicker than that. So that's going to be a good route for many people. The early bird catches the worm with this as well. In the new patch, these are going to be the first people, I should say, to get these, especially on the bigger servers, are going to be able to craft a bunch of this. I mean, who doesn't want a 262 item level piece of gear if they can go and just buy it from the auction house? Even as we stand in the last day of patch 9.1, at least as I'm recording this, item level 262 is about as high as, I mean, your current rank 6 legendary is that item level. We're now going to be able to craft a piece of gear, and everybody's going to be able to very quickly go and buy one, so why wouldn't they? It's going to be a few days, though, before people get their hands on this. This is, like I said, honoured for this, whether you be a leatherworker, a jewel crafter, a blacksmith, or a tailor. It doesn't matter, you have access to this. I should also state that I think alchemists and I want to say engineers have access to this as well. There are a few professions that can get access to this. When you log on, check your unlearned tab. This is always good to give you a bit of a heads up of what's coming when it comes to crafting stuff. You can get a sneak peek of what you don't currently have, and it usually gives you a bit of a heads up to how you go get it. Next, we should probably talk, this ties in quite nicely with the progenitor enhancements. You may have noticed when I was looking at my crafting a minute ago, there was another slot that you could play with. If we take a look, let's just pick, I don't know, Shadebound Gauntlets. We're used to these top two. These ones are for your missives if you want to specify what goes onto the gear. There's the item level modification, which we've just talked about, the crafter's marks, but there's this new one, a progenitor enhancement slot. I talked about these a little bit in the early days of the PTR, but I haven't really put much focus on them recently. These are just an additional way for you to flavor up some of this crafted gear that you're making. Some of them do some fancy things, such as there is the pure air sails, which engineers get to make. These guys, I should probably clarify that there's 8 of these and 2 of them are made by 4 different professions. Enchanters make 2 of them. In fact, this is a really good opportunity for me to showcase my cheat sheet, my Shadowlands cheat sheet. Where is it now? You guys will be aware of my Shadowlands cheat sheet. This is a little bit of a resource I put together. The link to this is always pinned in my Discord, so jump in the Discord if you want the latest copy of this cheat sheet. But these progenitor enhancements are going to do some funky things, like little extra bonus perks for your gear. Alchemy gets 2 of them, engineering gets 2 of them, enchanting gets 2 of them, and jewel crafting also gets 2 of them. Now these can be crafted and traded as well, so this provides those 4 professions something else to be crafting and selling. In most cases they're going to use a small amount of the new materials with a concoction of some of the past materials that we're used to using. And as you can see, they're not too expensive. They're not going to break the bank to craft or sell these, so get some of these made soon as you can. Regarding these, let's just take a quick overlook at what some of them do. So Cosmic Proto Weave, for example, is going to give you some avoidance and sometimes heal you. The Pure Air Sail extensions, I think this is going to be a big one. This increases your movement speed, and interestingly, at least on the PTR, this did stack. So if you equip an entire set of gear that has got this Pure Air Sails bonus attached to it, you can go really, really quick. This could be a clever play for some people who get this early to make some speed sets potentially. There's opportunities here. But these are all quite cool. These can give some flavor to it. And when you go to sell that crafted gear, it gives a little, it sets you apart from maybe some of the regular crafters who just mass and craft and, list it and sell it. So these could be quite good. The acquisition of these mostly drop by rares. So if you happen to be one of these 4 professions, alchemy, enchanting, engineering, or jewel crafting, there's going to be a couple of rares that are going to be of high interest to you. The pattern for that will drop off those. Jewel crafting, for example, I can show you on this toon. The harmonizing stone and the essence stone, you can see it drops from Tethos, or it drops from the Engulfer and Shifting Star Forger. These are new rares out in the Zereth Mortis zone that you can get acquainted to nice and early. Give yourself a chance of getting this pattern each and every day. So that's another option for you crafters out there. Next on my list, we should probably talk about the base legendary crafting. Yes, everybody loves themselves some legendaries. This might warrant its own video at some point. We are getting rank 7 in patch 9.2. There is going to be one higher rank, and it's going to have, no surprise to anybody, a higher item level. The base of this craft is going to be item level 291, but it's going to require this little tool here, the Vestige of Eternal. This works in a very similar fashion to the Vestige of the Origins from the last patch, from patch 9.1. Instead of it adding 2 ranks, it's going to add 3 ranks instead. This allows you to put it on your regular rank 4 pattern. I can show you as such with my Jewel Crafter. If we find the Shadowghast ring, we make sure rank 4 is selected, and we can now increase the rank. Instead of selecting our Vestige of Origins, we would select the Vestige of Eternal. this would boost that 4 up to a 7. This is going to be obviously in very, very high demand by the time we get into the patch. But once again, this is a little bit time gated. What you're going to need is actually this Tome of Eternal, which this has caused a little bit of confusion, so I'll try and clarify this as much as I can. This Tome of Eternal, you may have seen this if you've been looking into this previously, or maybe you've been scouting Wowhead. You may have seen that this is on the vendor. You may see that this is on Vilo, the Quartermaster vendor. This is not the main way that you go about getting this. You need to complete Chapter 5 of the campaign. The chapter of the campaign is called Crown of the Wills. This is Chapter 5 of the campaign, and so you will get access to this at the start, after the second reset. So start of week 3 is when you'll get the Crown of the Wills. You run through this, and then you get rewarded. It's actually a quest reward, the Tome of Origins.
The end of Zovol. There is much to be done. Much has been asked.
Oh, snap.
Keep the crown close until it is
Oh,
needed again.
snap.
Focus your efforts on Zovol.
You can't use that item.
We will
Say hello to the rep grind. Say hello to the rep grind. The reason it sits on the Quartermaster is so that if you don't have the professions in place already, when you complete the campaign, it's a way for you to come back and still have access to this at a later date. If you choose to buy it off the vendor, it's going to cost you 5,000 gold. It still has the same requirements of being honoured, though. This is something I should maybe highlight and clarify at this moment, that if you are a legendary crafter and you're looking to get access to this quickly, you do need to do the rep grind in Zereth Mortis as well. You also need to be honoured. You might notice by now, gold makers and crafters, everything unlocks when we get to honoured. So the faster you can get to honoured, the better you get all of your goodies from a crafting perspective. The new crafters marks, and you'll have access to the Tome of Eternal once the campaign chapter releases as well. Lots of goodies unlock at honoured. Once you've got the Tome of Eternal, you learn it. That then allows you to craft the new... Where's it gone? It allows you to craft the new Vestige of Eternal. You can use this on ranks 1, 2, 3, or 4 if you wish, but the obvious use for this is to put it on the rank 4 and create those rank 7s, because that's what people are going to want. One thing I should probably talk about a little bit is the Progenitor Essentia. This all kind of links in quite nicely. For you farmers out there, for you guys and girls that don't care too much for the crafting, it's too much like hard work, it's too risky, it costs far too much gold, you just want to go out into the world and gather some stuff and list it on the auction house, this is going to be a big item for you. The Progenitor Essentia is remarkably difficult to get hold of, even more difficult than Corthite crystals were in 9.1. In 9.1 with the Corthite crystals, it was quite often the case that you could get 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 10 of these a week just by doing your daily quests and maybe you doing your Shaping Fate. This is not the case with the Progenitor Essentia. These are a lot harder to get hold of, although there are some sneaky ways to do it. I'm going to put a video together specifically talking about how to get these Progenitor Essentia once we've had a little bit, maybe 2-3 days of actual live 9.2, so I can clarify some of my testing with other people. But the way it looks is treasures. One-time treasures is going to be the big way for you to acquire these. There's about 20, I want to say 29 one-time treasures in Zereth Mortis. They have the highest chance of dropping these Progenitor Essentias, along with many other goodies, but I won't spoil everything for you. The one-time treasures in and around Zereth Mortis give you the greatest chance of getting these, but once you've collected those treasures, you're going to have to rely on simple methods such as farming. Herbalism and miners. When you're flying around and you're doing your gathering, you have the chance to find these. They're incredibly rare though. I've gone hours at a time, quite literally hours at a time, with flying on a druid, still not seeing any of these. They can drop from herbalism and mining, but they're incredibly rare. This is a good reason to believe that they might be very expensive at the beginning. You don't need many of them though, so bear that in mind. You only need 2 of them for each Eternal. No longer do we need like 40 Korthite crystals. We only need 2 of these Pog Essence to make a single rank 7 legendary this time. So they're rarer, but you don't need as many. So we might see it sort of balance out overall in terms of its price. But that is the majority of the ways that you are going to look at making gold in patch 9.2. Now there is a couple of honourable mentions. What I've talked about in this video is primarily the new stuff, any new materials, any new crafts, but it's very true to say the old school stuff will still work. The zone specific materials, for example, materials you find out and about in Revendreth, Moldrax's Bastion, Unwhelmed, are still in demand. A lot of the crafts that we're going to be making still rely on your Shadowghast ingots. They still rely on having, I mean, your potions, your flasks are still going to rely heavily on the specific herbs and the specific ore that comes from the 4 main zones. If you struggle, or maybe say for example there are just too many people farming the new materials, don't forget about the old stuff. I will throw this in here at the end as an honourable mention, that if you are looking to farm up some gold, the existing stuff is still going to be worthwhile, so continue to do what you've been doing so far. There's another honourable mention that I'll talk about. It's the new Protoform Synthesis. I might do a little jump cut and I'll show you what the Protoform Synthesis is. Back in 2. So then, Protoform Synthesis. Protoform Synthesis is a new little system that's been added in Zereth Mortis and patch 9.2, directly allowing you to create pets and mounts. There are 2 synthesis forges out in Zereth Mortis. One is just to the south, Pilgrim's Grace. This is the first one you'll be introduced to. This is where you can craft some of the pets. Later on, through your searching through Zereth Mortis, you'll find one further up north, which unlocks the ability for you to craft mounts. Now, of course, the mounts are going to be personal to you. It's just a solo adventure. But we're talking about gold making today, so let's talk about the pets real quick. There's a whole flurry of different pets that you're going to be able to make. Now, of course, these, in many cases, sure, when you make them, they're bind on pickup to you, but you can then cage them and sell them on the auction house. This might eventually, we'll have to see how this plays out, but at least by my initial thinking is that, you know, during the patch these will probably be pretty cheap, but let's see what happens in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months down the line. When nobody is any longer in Zereth Mortis, these pets might hold quite a strong amount of value. How do you go about getting them? Well, it's quite simple. You gather Genesis motes. This is just a regular crafting reagent that you pick up on your travels throughout Zereth Mortis. And occasionally, this is the common one, occasionally you'll find these lattices or these glimmers. These are sort of the rare ones. These are sort of the catalyst for you to be able to make the thing. They are going to fill your bags up for sure, but eventually you'll come across most of these in your playtime through Zereth Mortis and be able to craft a bunch of pets and potentially sell them for a profit. Your realm may differ. That's the last little bonus I will throw in towards the end of this video for you guys that have stuck it out. We may do a little bit more of a deeper dive on this Protoform Synthesis, especially considering some of the actual glimmers can be quite hard to track down. Maybe we'll look into that in a little bit more detail. If you want to see that video, make sure you hit the like button. Drop your comments down below on what you plan to do for gold making in patch 9.2. I'm always interested to hear exactly which avenues players choose to go down. It helps me construct these videos going forward. But hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Good luck in patch 9.2, boys and girls, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.